Anyway, so so today I want to talk about doing master copies, and now I don't know if you've seen these, like the Master Draftsman series books. Some of these are the Dover ones, but these are like the best thing ever. They're really cheap, and they're really just made up of like Xerox drawings, but they're like, well, they were like $6 or $7 when I got them. I guess some of them are kind of hard to find now. But these were basically like my education for drawing and stuff while I was here. So when you're doing like master studies, I kind of see there being like kind of two ways of approaching it, and one is being where you come in here and you copy like every single mark and try and match it. Basically you're copying it more aesthetically, trying to get the mark making down. And the other would be to where you're actually treating it as if it were like a live model and breaking it down into basic forms first. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here. And let's look at Pontormo, because he's pretty cool. So let's look for something that basically I copied everything in here already. And one thing too, doing this is good because basically they give you like everything spelled out, and like all the overlaps and marks and stuff are already there. So like it's like all the answers are kind of given to you, in a sense. So what I would do too is like, after coming in here, I would just spend all day drawing at workshop, and then I'd go home and go do master copies, and then, rinse and repeat the next day. But, before you come into workshop, like, spend half an hour or an hour and just do some master studies so that when you come in here, you're not kind of starting from scratch, but you have something in your head to kind of either aim towards or just to get your mind in the groove, right? I guess the coffee spilled on here. That's all right. Makes it look older. Makes it look of the time. So, Pontormo is actually a little crazy. You can kind of see it in some of his drawings. And one thing to keep in mind, everyone looks at these old master drawings and they're like, oh, that's cool. But the way they were drawn and the forms they're using really stem from like the time that they were drawn, and during the Renaissance, they were all about getting, rediscovering all the Greek philosophy and stuff and the ideal forms. So the forms they're using are very specific to what they were into back in the day. So something to keep in mind, because you do look at these and like, man, these look kind of crazy and weird, but they were aiming for something specific. So you got to kind of take that into account. It's like if you look at drawings from today, people in like t-shirts and stuff, like 500 years from now, like they're gonna be like, man, these look weird. What's up with that? So anyway, don't discount them because they're of a different time, but the concepts within them are sound. This is really where drawing comes from, right? So when you're looking at the drawings, again, I'm basically looking for the same stuff. We're looking for like, tilts in the shoulders. We can go for that stretch and pinch, or we could start with kind of that main gesture line here. But I'm basically treating it as if it were a live model in front of me. So going for the big broad strokes first, just getting a sense of the gesture here. You get hips running down into legs here. You can even do head to the groin, roughly the bottom of the feet. This legs bending back. I'm taking note of where the weight is. So in this pose here, they're really kind of supporting themselves on this right leg here. So as I move into the hips, we're going to be seeing a tilt on that side here, and then a drop on the opposite side. So this lifts up, and this side drops here. We can get center line here running through back of the neck, to the arch of the back, into the sacrum, pelvis here. And again, this initial gestural lay-in, not worrying about details, really just focusing on the general placement and movement of the figure here. And then we can start to move into the three-dimensional, which would be starting to find, like, pit of the neck, starting to map out where that rib cage is sitting here. That volume. Actually, before I do that, let's get, what this arm is doing. And if you look here, like, around the neck, he's basically just drawing a cylinder like that, right? So I don't make this stuff up. I just steal it from the old masters. So you gotta believe me when I say you should do this. So we get this running into the hips. We're gonna get obliques here. And then he really shows us this kind of overlap here of the iliac crest riding down into the sacrum. There's an overlap here just behind the hand. So we get that. And I'm going to kind of simplify it, though. Again, just working with that kind of box lay-in here. But we feel a definite kind of side plane running down. Again, this is more about analysis than making it look pretty or look exactly like what we're referencing here. You get a chromium process. The arm leans back into the, whatever this is, scapula here. We can follow that trapezius, and we feel the volume of the scapula pushing through. And as they lift out their arm here, we feel that pull out that scapula there. Moving down, we get the leg here. We can feel the back of the knee here and the calf, the ankle. Let's kind of box that out. And so one thing to look at is we are seeing this tilt. So this knee is actually going to be higher than this knee as it bends. And we can definitely feel this volume through here, and this leg moving back, this coming back towards us. You can find condyle here of the elbow, the ulna coming through here. So this is a pretty good kind of setup for our kind of further analysis into this. We have the sacrum here coming down. So from here, then, what you could do is like get your anatomy book out and like start to identify where all these muscles are. One thing I would do is look at these drawings and basically try and identify what every single lump and bump is here. Like just have my anatomy book out next to this and kind of like identify, go through each one. And also too, like if you're drawing in the workshop or in class or whatever, and then you're like, I have no idea how to approach that shoulder. Chances are you can find a similar pose from like one of these old master drawings, and just look how they did it. Just steal their ideas. This comes through here. So once we set this up, again, it's more about wrapping this anatomy and stuff around these volumes than kind of copying the lines at this point here. I would pay attention to what lines are overlapping here. So this is stepping in front, which helps us kind of complete basically the form of the deltoid here. It's technically not the deltoid, but as a form, in terms of the contour, it kind of encapsulates it, and it pushes the arm behind it. So that helps to reinforce that sense of the arm moving back in space here. And obviously he doesn't have these kind of rings over the form, but you still get that sense of the arm moving away from us. And it really is because he's very conscious of what lines are in front of what, right? In terms of the overlap, to push that away. This comes down, you can feel trapezius wrapping through, teres major into the, whatever that is, your scapula here. It's probably going to be the pec behind, sitting on top of the rib cage here. But basically, I'll just go through this again as if I were drawing from life here. And then we're going to feel that egg squished inside the Play-Doh. So here's where we feel the volume to the rib cage wrapping around. And then it gets interrupted by, well, this back muscle here, which pushes then into the form of the obliques here. So this reaching back up through the back, scapula here, just diving in. So let's exaggerate this overlap, pushing into sacrum. These back muscles are going to feel those kind of tubes running up here and pulling back into the sacrum here. Gluteus medius, gluteus maximus here pulling down. And we feel that division again here. So, again, like I'm not copying it like mark for mark, but I'm looking to kind of separate the forms, looking for how he's defining them, looking for what I know and understand here. Great trochanter pushing out between gluteus medius and gluteus maximus. Whatever this is in the back of the leg, that muscle group here. So if pulling from, whatever this is, great trochanter down through the knee here, this back form here, and we have this tendon coming down from the biceps femoris, and then on the opposite side we get that group from the sartorius and his buddies. So these are giving us that those two corners to the leg, which kind of frame the calf, and it's actually probably turning out a little bit more than what I've kind of indicated here. So let's adjust that. Corner calf here, stepping down into the soleus. And pulling into the foot. So, Pontormo is pretty great because he's very clear with his forms. As long as he's not like sketching out some line and trying to figure it out over and over. For the most part, all of the forms are like really simple. Like if you look at the leg here, he's basically defining back plane, and the core shadow we have a side plane. So and his feet really are just kind of like door stops. Right? It's kind of real simple boxes here. And this leg going back in space away from us. And we feel that tendon pushing over for the calf, stepping back towards us. And here he just really breaks off the ankle. And then again, this is just a wedge. And we can actually just kind of knock this back away. And then this leg here, not leg, but arm, feel the biceps here, and he's kind of indicating the triceps in the back with his tone pulling back towards this condyle here. The steps in front. The scapula here, deltoid, pulling back into form of the triceps here, and then running back to the rest of the arm. So we can kind of simplify this and knock it back. And then here he's just giving us, so you just put the ear in, again, that's basically defining that jawline and giving you the rotation of the head. So, like taking it maybe to this far would be a pretty good place. You don't have to go crazy like rendering everything out, but it's more about just finding the major forms, finding the rib cage and all that, getting a general kind of breakdown for the whole figure, right? Does that kind of make sense, you guys? You guys have any questions?
So the advantage of master studies is that they simplify already for you?
Yeah.
And then you further simplify that?
Yeah, basically. That's kind of the idea. Because, when you are looking for those breakdowns, they're basically pushing things like the overlap of the iliac crest, right? Sometimes on the figure, you might not see that. You might just get like a subtle tone here. But they're really making a point to show you those kind of interlocking forms, right?
Oh, because they put it in the construction where it's not in the observation, right?
Yeah. They're basically doing with their drawings the same thing we're doing in here, right? It might, of course, like the style is a little different, and they're getting a little fancy with it a lot of times, but more or less the same information is there, right? And again, it's going to be a lot clearer than really what you see on the model, right? So, yeah. Anything else? Do you guys want to see another one, or what time is it?
Yeah, man. Let's do another one.
Okay.
Is it appropriate to study from what are these 5 minutes or 3 minutes?
I would say maybe 20 minutes or so. Just don't time yourself. Just spend as much time as you feel like you need to kind of get what you want out of the study. Maybe you see a drawing and you're like, oh, that's a really nice torso. How did they approach that? Then I'll just spend as much time as you need to kind of to get that down. You might be selling yourself a little bit short if you say 5 minutes and then you don't get what you wanted out of it.
So it's very contemplative study, not get as much done.
Yeah, just slow down, And really, if you want to do better in quick sketch and stuff, you want to do some longer poses so that you can refine your forms and get more subtle with it. Whereas the quick sketch is more about identifying the larger aspects of it and what's important to look at first. The overall structure behind it. But long pose is more about the subtleties and the nuances. So spend your time, basically when you have infinite time with these, you can kind of spend your time doing both, right? You can, looking at this again, we can set up the basic gesture here.
Is it pointless to copy a 30-second gesture or something?
No, I think it's fine. Again, it's one thing. When you're drawing, it's important to think about what the drawing is for, because you can't really compare a 40-hour drawing to a 30-second gesture because they have different purposes, right? So as long as you're conscious of what the artist was trying to achieve with the drawing, then you'll get something out of it, right?
Okay.
So if it's 30 seconds, then they're not going to be well, his deltoid is way off, What's wrong, man? What happened? Well, he only had 30 seconds, so he probably wasn't really focused on the specifics of the anatomy and the accuracy so much. So again, as long as you're conscious of what the drawing was for, or at least try to get in the mindset of the artist to think about what they're trying to achieve, then you'll get something out of, really whatever you copy. So anyway, so setting this up, you get this larger gesture, really simple, thinking about kind of that stretch. And here we're really seeing a twist through the middle, through his core here. And let's set up crazy Pontormo faces.
don't copy Pontormo faces.
Well, you can, if that's what you're into. Pontormo had kind of like his parents died when he was really young, and he was just kind of like on his own, finding his own style, and then he was kind of insane a little bit. Anyway, so feel bad for Pontormo. But then again, he's like this crazy, awesome draftsman here. So I have rib cage here. And one thing too about all these like lumps and bumps, I always say like don't like draw the snowman because it stiffens it up. But really what going for that kind of stretch and pinch is getting at is we're starting to look for opposing rhythms. And if you follow all these lumps and bumps side to side, you'll see that they're going to be following in a rhythmical pattern that don't necessarily line up, right? But initially, look for the bigger rhythms before you hit all the small beats here. So you have rib cage. You're going to feel that oblique stretching here, pulling into, you could basically box this off here. Into whatever this is. Iliac crest here. This we actually have pulling over. So when we're dealing with the box, the pelvis is not exactly a box, but it's kind of an approximation of it. So when you look at some of these drawings, we will be seeing the form of the iliac crest pulling over because they are a bit more naturalistic. But again, treat it like you're drawing the figure, so we want to kind of simplify these things. So they're understandable here. So we have this coming out, thinking about this volume here, thinking about this volume here. Leg coming down here, leg coming down here, this arm is coming forward. And so as I'm drawing, a lot of it ends up just doing this a lot because I'm really feeling around the form. So it's running into the pit of the neck here, the center, opening up into the thoracic arch. Through here, through belly button, pulling down, and I kind of cover it up, but we really feel this wedge of the abdominals pulling in, and there's basically like a line. I don't know if some of these I've drawn in the book just to kind of trace out the forms that I see. We feel the oblique wrapping around here. We're going to be feeling this coming forward as we push over into the rib cage here. Let's see, let's actually jump into these legs here because we can get into this foreshortening. So we're going to feel this volume to the groin, wrapping through. We feel the bulge of that rectus femoris here into the knee, and we're going to feel that form of the vastus medialis come through. Bigger form to follow, I guess, would be the sartorius, kind of wrapping around here. So again, the key with like these kind of foreshortened legs is to look at how the forms themselves overlap each other. So we feel adductor to the gracilis here. So we have this one kind of tube in here, and we have another tube out here. So this sits on top or in front of this form here. Pulling in, we get tendon. tendon group wrapping in underneath the knee here. Patella on top. And a divot, and he's kind of closing off this whole area with the vastus medialis here. And this will ride into shin bone here. And again, I'm going to kind of simplify this because I'm not really worried about the specifics of the forms, but more about the organization of them. Foot coming out, we feel the step down for whatever those are. And then his foot disappears. Tarsal bones into the metatarsals here. On the opposite side, we feel this swing in. And on the top here, we're really seeing the form of the, whatever that is, vastus medialis pushing up against the patella here. And then we feel this group dive in underneath the tibial nose here. And then we can basically follow, he's got some tone going down here, follow that down through the shin into the inner malleosis here. And then underneath that we have the calf into the soleus, to Achilles tendon, into his crazy triangle feet. And on the opposite side here, let's bracket this. Tibialis and ticus. So this is on top. So one thing too is I would follow through with like where these subtle tones go, because what he's actually doing here is kind of breaking the knee off into its own form. That's kind of the pivot point, and then behind that we have the rest of the leg, and below that we have the lower leg here. So he's kind of like sectioning things off. Same thing here. We have this form, this below it, and this behind it, and this behind that, right?
Is it like the puppet joint kind of thing?
Puppet joint?
Like how there's a ball and then...
Oh, yeah, kind of like that, like a ball joint doll.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can think of it like that. Let's see, flowing up here. So one thing too is like, you know, once you establish the gesture, when you have these smaller forms, like in this case, it's kind of those wrinkles in the stomach, the abs, you want to use them to kind of echo or reinforce that gesture for you. And you can really see that here as he twists back. We really feel these smaller forms kind of push into that gesture there. So you want to design them. Same with the belly button too. You know, instead of just drawing a dot, think about how that ties into the gesture. So here it's actually kind of coming across and lifting up slightly. So it's moving with the movement of the pose here. And feel that pec behind that hand. And again, just like drawing from the model, I'm going to omit what's in front for now, just for understanding here. So pulling across here, pulling down. You're going to feel lats coming through. Shoulder in front. Scapula. Pulling down into the lats here. And then we feel this overlap of the deltoid pushing behind. It's really just indicated with a tone here. And one thing you'll notice, like he really chisels out the forms of that arm there, where he's coming across here with his hatching, and then on the back here he's just coming down like that. So he's really just kind of indicating a box, right? And then we feel whatever this is stepping in front. We have that condyle, access to the condyles here, ulna, And this whole thing wraps forward. And we feel he really, let's read it out over here. It's getting a little messy there. He really boxes out the wrist here. We really feel that radius, the corner, right in here. And then he shows the division with the ulna on the other side, kind of cupping the carpal bones in there. So everything's kind of spelled out. It's just in a slightly different dialect. And then he's got these crazy paper fingers here. And shoulder, behind, neck, that volume there, chin. So, again, we do have all these lumps and bumps and stuff, but try and focus on the major forms here in terms of trying to identify the rib cage, the obliques, and the pelvis here. Steps forward here. Sitting on a box. Anyway, does that make sense? All right. I guess it's time to draw. So cool. Just do that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.